and here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready to launch for the 500th time a Falcon launch vehicle. In this case, it is Falcon 9 on the Starlink 12-19 mission. So needless to say it with me in chat, this is not your ordinary Starlink. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for today's special launch. And of course, joining me are some special people here at NSF, including Alex. How's it going, Alex?
I am Falcontastic, if you will. I tried to make like a play of word there with that, but it didn't work. You know I love Falcon, right? So of course I had to be here for the 500th.
Well, we are glad to have you here. Also glad to have with us. Hey, there's a pun token for you. Also glad to have with us Max Evans in the field. Max, how's it going?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Space Coast. Yeah, welcome back to Falcon 9 operations and away from all these Starship, chaos. And we're back to, your regularly scheduled programming here on the Space Coast of Florida.
That is true, yes. The last launch that we had was a Falcon 9, and before that was a Falcon 9, and then before that one was a Falcon 9, so it's a nice break from the Falcon 9s on the Space Coast.
Well, at least for me, I'm finally back from Starbase as of yesterday, so getting back to ops here in Florida.
Well, we're glad to have you back. Also glad to have Carson Phillips being the one behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and bringing the views for you for today's mission. So let's start off with the basics of the mission, then we'll get into the fun numbers and details and historicalness, if that's a word. Alex, what do we have for today's mission? How many satellites? Where are they going to?
Yeah, so today is going to be a Starlink mission, Starlink Group 12-19. This is going to be launching a mixed batch of Starlink V2 minis and Starlink Direct to cell satellites, launching 10 of the Starlink V2 minis and 13 Starlink Direct to cell satellites. That's going to be 23 in total. Now, because it is a Group 12 mission, not only they are launched with this mixed batch of satellites, but also they are launched into a 43-degree inclination orbit, which means the Falcon 9 for this mission will be heading out southeast from the Cape. Today's launch, as you can see there on the ticker at the bottom, it's from Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. And it's going to head southeast. It's going to fly sort of northeast of the Bahamas. And the booster, of course, it's flight proven. It's 21st mission for this flight. And it's going to be landing on Just Read the Instructions. There you can see some of the missions that it has done in the past, those 20 missions prior to this one. And so that's pretty much like what you consider, your sort of typical Starlink, if you will, although, with the different groups and everything, every now and then there's like a different type of Starlink every now and then, right? Like one is going northeast, the other is going to southeast. Some have mixed batch of V2 minis and direct to cell. Some are only just V2 minis, etc., etc. But yeah, this one, southeast, 43 degrees, mixed batch, and the booster will be landing on Just Read the Instructions off the coast of the Northeast Bahamas, essentially. But yeah.
Yep, it can be a regular Starlink, it could be kind of like that, but it can never be ordinary. So, of course, now with 52 minutes to go, with this particular vehicle and being in Florida, one of the main concerns, of course, is weather. Max, how is it looking out there tonight? And by the way, what are the marine assets that are going to be downrange should all go well tonight weather-wise?
Well, to start out with the marine assets, transition from Alex and what he was saying about the booster and the mission. Stationed about 600 kilometers downrange tonight is SpaceX's drone ship. Just read the instructions. And about 100 kilometers farther downrange, give or take a handful, is the fairing recovery ship Bob, scooping those fairings out of the water, assuming they re-enter and splash down successfully under their own parachutes. However, when it comes to the weather, I think it's safe to say, Sawyer, I think with you being in South Florida, you can also attest to this. We are now currently in the summer weather patterns here in Florida, which means the weather patterns in the air, in the atmosphere here, especially lower down, are incredibly unstable and can change rapidly. And that includes nighttime as well, as actually I'm looking at right now. Looking towards the Atlantic Ocean, I'm seeing a bit of lightning out over the water, but that is a ways away. Not currently posing a threat to operations, but as we are seeing it, there is only a 25% probability of violation when it comes to weather tonight. The primary concerns actually being solar activity, which is currently rated at a moderate level. Not something we see too often, but as we have seen in the past, SpaceX has lost a batch or two of Starlink satellites due to high solar activity and all sorts of gizzards and gubbins inside these Starlink satellites getting all kind of fudged up because of all the intense rays coming from the sun. So SpaceX has hopefully learned their lesson, and assuming that the sun is playing nice, at least at the time of liftoff, and hopefully just afterwards, they can get Falcon 9 off the ground tonight. But otherwise, as far as the Mark 1 eyeballs are concerned, besides the lightning out over the Atlantic, weather is currently nice and calm, very humid, of course, but there is about a moderate cloud layer above us. Nothing immediately concerning, but at the moment, we are looking A-OK for hopefully prop load in just a few minutes.
Yes. Well, SpaceX, though, has never had any issues with that. They've never launched any Starlink satellites during extreme solar activity and then lost the vehicles as a result. Oh, wait.
Oh, no, never. No, never. This never happened
No,
before.
that would never happen. And a reminder, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can. Here's one. I see a lot of questions about the number of boosters in rotation. One from Kurt asking how many boosters were produced to get to 500 launches. Alex, I think you have some 500 launch numbers, don't you?
Yeah, well, in terms of boosters produced, it's a little bit different than boosters launched. But the latest one, like the highest number that we've seen, is B1095, so roughly 95. A little bit more because this 500 launches actually counts also Falcon 1 launches. And we can sort of talk about this. There we go. So why is it 500? So Falcon, right, began with Falcon 1, and then it moved to Falcon 9, and then they made Falcon Heavy out of Falcon 9. And so you've got there 5 launches of Falcon 1. 3 of them were failures, the first 3. Then they launched the first successful one, and then they did an operational mission with a customer on board. And then they moved on to Falcon 9, and so far there's been 483 launches. One of them non-orbital, but it was a complete Falcon 9 that was in flight abort test. And then we also had 11 Falcon Heavy launches, all of them successful, thankfully. The 3 failures of Falcon 9 were CRS-7, and then we've got also AMO-6, and then we've got also what's the name? Starlink 9.3. Oh, geez. That was like last year, but it was still like a long time ago. If I'm not mistaken, we actually have the stat for that. It was like, 131 launches ago, just saying. So, now, one of the things here is that you add up all of those numbers, and of course, it gives you 499 because this mission has not happened yet, so it's not counted yet. But if it happens, then that will be the 500th launch of this rocket, of the Falcon family, if you will, of Falcon 1, Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy. Now, you may know that at least Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy do land their boosters, right? So I also added this. This is graphics that were made by Ryan Caden. I gave him the numbers, and he did this. Very nice, very tidy, because I had an original graphic that did not work. But then you can see there have been 446 landing attempts of Falcon 9 boosters, and on Falcon Heavy missions, 21 landing attempts. 19 of them successful, 2 of them failures. That was, the STP-2 and Falcon Heavy demo center core landings. I do count Arabsat center core landing because it landed successfully. It was the afterwards. Same deal with the Falcon 9. There were a couple of Falcon 9s that were lost after the landing happened. So I don't count that because the landing was successful. But then you can see there haven't been that many landing failures, as you can see. But these are the Falcon family sort of in numbers, if you will. This I sort of joked in the back channel earlier that it was, the stream of numbers or something. But there you can see why we say this is the 500th Falcon launch, and also the landings as well, because Falcon 9 is currently, well, I shouldn't say that anymore, I guess. I was going to say it's the only overall capable booster to be reused, but we had Starship Flight 9 already reusing a booster. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, orbit capable. Still the only one,
Orbit capable.
only actual orbital so far
Exactly.
vehicle that has, which I'm sure will
Exactly.
change soon. But for now, trying to give Falcon that little bit of extra love there. But thank you, Alex, for getting all those numbers together. It's so cool. Again, it's unbelievable to think that this vehicle in all those years now going for a 500th with all of its different variants. And we didn't even get to see, wasn't Falcon 5 a consideration at one point?
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but yeah. And it had like 2 Kestrel engines as the second stage. That was weird.
That was so bizarre.
And the funny thing is, there's a good chance. I mean, yeah, there's a non-zero chance that before the end of the year we have the 600th. Like maybe right at the end of the year. Just watch. Just, stay tuned. We'll see.
Stay tuned, exactly. Yes, and here at NSF, we will have you covered. Oh, it's too early for a plug like that. I'm kidding. Let's take some more questions here. John Cook wondering, by the way, this is probably an Alex question as well. Is there a mass difference between the V2 minis and the direct to cells?
Yeah, so the direct to cells, they have a deployable antenna to extend sort of, to get more area. Because you're trying to talk to a mobile phone on the ground. It's this tiny little thing. And, well, talking actually is not the problem. The problem is hearing that little thing with a little antenna, right? When you are here on the ground and you have, many cell towers around you, they are probably a few kilometers at most of distance to you. Whereas we're talking about 300, 400 kilometers away, and they're, flying by at 8 kilometers per second. Like, we're talking really, really rough numbers here, right? To be able to get that signal to the satellite, and you need to get that signal. So the way to do that is, get a bigger ear, if you will, right? To listen to the phone. And so they have not only the bottom, so instead of having the usual antennas that a Starlink V2 mini satellite will have, which are the K-band and Q-band antennas and things like that, they just have the LT antenna to listen to the phone. But also, there's a deployable sort of, to increase the surface of the antenna. There's another deployable antenna sort of on a hinge. And you may actually, once the satellite, the fairing pops out during flight, you may see that some of them have like hinges and things like that. Those are the direct to cell satellites, and it sort of deploys and it becomes like a larger antenna. And so that way you can listen to the signals from the cell phones a little bit better. So yeah, they are heavier. They occupy a little bit more volume on the fairing and everything. Yeah, they're different.
There you go. Also, a comment from someone named Kevin Michael Reed saying this guy talks a lot.
I mean,
yeah.
People ask, I answer.
I mean, they're also saying why is Ship 26 the best ship, which is totally wrong. So I'm not even going to bring that question up on the screen, Kevin.
Yeah, no.
Let's see. Here's one from Yvonne Mush. It's a good thought question. And Max, I'll start with you on this one. They're saying, how many years do you think it will take until a rocket like Falcon or Starship is able to beat Soyuz in launches, which is currently the most launched family of vehicles?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Soyuz and the R7 family of rockets are around 1,000. Alex, is that correct?
2000. Last
2,000.
I heard. Yeah, they even put like a decal on one of their recent, because it was like very recently, like last year, if I'm not mistaken, where they hit 2000. But it also counts like weird to orbital flights and test flights and whatever. They're not a lot. It's like maybe 90 at most that they count, non-orbital flights, but they still count them because it's like full rockets and everything. But yeah, it's like 2000 or so. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of
and
them.
so with that, and with the Falcon family being at only 500, it's going to take a few years, and that is assuming Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are online and operational for long enough until Starship becomes commercially viable. Because once that happens, there's going to be no real reason or purpose for Falcon, at least that we can figure for the foreseeable future. Maybe for crew flights until they can get Starship human rated. But it's going to take a long time, and assuming Falcon 9 does, it's going to be, oh boy, it's probably going to be another 6 to 7 years at the earliest.
Yeah, I mean, even at the current cadence where they're like, just for simplicity's sake, we're say 150 launches a year, right? We're talking 500 now. To reach 2000, you will need 1500, so 1500. That is like 10 years of continuously launching pretty much every 2 days, right? That's bonkers.
Yeah,
And then Starship will eventually have to also do that as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I don't know if we'll actually ever get to that point before they retire Falcon's family, because don't forget that whole Soyuz family is still launching too, and there is no sign of that being retired in the near future. So
To be
I
fair,
think,
it's
yeah,
also launching at a much slower pace. Like
I
they've
was
launched
gonna
like
say,
what, 3 times this year?
I mean,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Soyuz doesn't have anywhere near the launch cadence that Falcon does, let alone any other rocket.
Yeah.
I think the only one that comes close is Rocket Lab with Electron, and which just launched just a few hours ago, actually.
but it does have a 1500 flight head start currently.
1,500 flights and also many, many, many decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, true. Theirs was definitely done slower. The pace is absolutely picked up here with Falcon, but I don't know. I think it would be close to be able to get it as we get to the end of Falcon's timeline. But we are also getting to the beginning of Falcon 9's timeline for tonight's flight. Max, what can we expect coming up here in these next 40 minutes?
So we are coming up on the beginning of what hopefully is going to be a very time-sensitive matter for Falcon 9. At the T-minus 38 mark is when the SpaceX launch director will either verify if the vehicle and ground systems are either go or no-go for propellant load. Assuming he or she gives the go, propellant load of Falcon 9 being the RP-1 on Stage 1 and Stage 2, as well as Stage 1 liquid oxygen, will commence at T 5 minutes. Assuming that goes well, we should begin to see frost at the very bottom of the LOX tank on the first stage, which is just above the shrubbery from the tight perspective that we have tonight on this view, actually, at around T-minus 32 to 31 minutes. It really depends on what the atmosphere is doing, and tonight it is very humid, so I imagine frost will be incredibly easily visible, especially with 21 flights of soot coating the surface of B-1077. And moving on beyond that, at T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds is when SpaceX wraps up Stage 2 RP-1 load and begins chill down of the fuel lines in the transporter erector with the big old 20-minute, 20-second vent for Stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. So, but before we get there, we have to, of course, commence prop load into the first stage first. So we should be coming up on that. Actually, now at T-minus 37 minutes and change, that go should have either been given or not given at this point. So everyone keep your eyes peeled for frost in just a few minutes.
We will keep an eye on that, and hopefully that will mean that they are going to continue with the launch tonight for Starlink 12-19. This is probably an Alex question from Dank Jeb, who's asking, why does Next Spaceflight, which if you haven't downloaded Next Spaceflight, you totally should, get all the info on the upcoming launches, get notifications for Starship road closures, and you can now actually see the trajectory for all of these launches with the thanks to data from Flight Club. But they're asking, why does Next Spaceflight say that this is the 485th Falcon when the stream graphic that we showed earlier says 483rd?
Yeah, okay, so two things, because I actually, they are also in the Discord, so I was trying to, talk through about this. So, Next Spaceflight says it is the 501st mission because it counts missions and not launches. I guess our title should be changed to 500 Falcon launch. They also realized that, and thanks for the feedback, by the way. But it is true. So the one offset there, it is AIM-06. So it was a mission, right? And so on the app, it is counted as a mission, but it didn't launch. So it is not counted as a launch. So if you do the math and are not as bad as me, so it's actually 481 successful Falcon 9s, and that will still give you 483 Falcon 9s, and then this will be the 484th Falcon launch plus one mission, right? That AIM-06 mission, then that gives you the 485th Falcon. It should say mission on the app. We're still trying to get all that minutia stuff because I've been bugging the developers. But this is essentially how it works: 501st mission, but 500th launch because there was Falcon 9 is weird because it had a mission that was not a launch because it exploded on the pad before it even got to launch. But yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, yeah, people saying in chat it kind of launched. Part of it launched.
It's more like it took a tumble following a rud.
It moved. I think it's safe to say either way it moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, which Dankjab, thank you for using your 52-month member mark to send that question as well. That was really cool. Here's one from 98 Central, and Max, I'll throw this one to you. They're saying, I don't see Starlink satellites like I used to. I could always spot a train 2 years ago. Has there been a difference in these Starlink satellites in the last 2 years, why we don't see as many trains?
Well, I think it was easier to spot trains when Starlinks were first launching because, one, SpaceX was launching the version 1s, and they were a bunch of around 60 satellites per batch. And depending on when they were launched and when that train, I guess, would coincide with the right timing in terms of sunrise or sunset for visibility, then they were also a lot more reflective back then. So they were a lot easier to spot. Nowadays, of course, SpaceX is launching anywhere from 23 to 28 or 29 sometimes. And SpaceX has taken a great effort to make sure that all of these Starlink satellites are nowhere near as reflective of either sun or moonlight as they used to be in order to play nice with everyone who wants to enjoy a clear night sky. But that being said, you still can see them, albeit they are a lot more rare, I guess, to spot, especially here in Florida. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I saw a full train like super close up with one another. At least here, I guess timing with the launches and sunrise or sunset viewing opportunities just hasn't lined up. But that is essentially why. I think it's a lot easier to spot them across the U.S. or across the world, depending on timing. I couldn't give you an exact time because I don't follow that, unfortunately. But they are a lot more tricky to spot now. That's for sure.
Yeah, again, it helps that they've been trying to cut down on their reflectiveness, so that's kind of a good thing in that way as well. And then, of course, yeah, the less satellites at once. It'll be interesting to see if the trains are even visible or even that visible once we get to Starship, where I'm expecting there'll be bigger satellites, but maybe not as many.
Well, so it's also funny you say that because when I was just in Starbase for Flight 9, I think it was a night or two before launch. I was just out in the flats just south of the pad, maybe 35 or 40 minutes after sunset, trying to get some night imagery. And you look up, and there was no moon in the sky, so it was night. It was nice and dark. I saw a satellite going overhead, going in the southeast direction. Excuse me. Sorry. I thought it was just the one, but if you look carefully, sometimes you can either pick up one or two in front or behind it, and then before you know it, you are looking at a full Starlink train. So it's a lot more common nowadays to see Starlink trains that are a lot more spread out. If you can adjust your eyes properly and you are at the correct time to see them, assuming your skies are behaving. Whoa, big lightning off over the water. Sorry, distraction. But yeah, the trains are pretty easy to spot. But you know what else is easy to spot, Sawyer? Is now frost on the bottom of Falcon 9's LOX tank.
Ooh, that was smooth. That was a really smooth transition, Max.
I'm just trying to be like you, Sawyer, to be honest.
Oh, shucks. Thank you. So, yes. With that, we now know that prop load is underway. So that is the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, and the LOX, the liquid oxygen, on stage 1. Meanwhile, stage 2 is going with the RP-1 only. And as Max pointed out earlier, that will continue for the next 10-ish minutes until the 20-minute, 20-second vent. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. But they are on track, and again, with fueling underway, they are committed for this particular T0. I do want to take a second to thank Apocalypse Cow for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much. A name we see here quite often. I very much appreciate it. I do not appreciate EJ in chat now getting the Proclaimers 500 miles stuck in my head, although to the tune of 500 Falcons. So, thank you to EJ for that. And I would launch 5. Anyway,
Copyright infringement.
yeah, that's why I'm stopping now.
And we go silent.
Buzzer sound.
Down goes our stream. Yeah, right.
Dylan is wondering, Alex, can you walk us through the life cycle of a Falcon 9 booster? Build, integration, transport, testing.
I'm going to try and do it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So Falcon 9 begins as rolls of essentially aluminum, lithium, basically like panels of that. They weld them together, stir friction, welding and everything. Then the barrels are also welded together to make the tanks. Then the two tanks are mated together, welded together, friction, stir welding and everything. And then once the tanks are completed, on the other side, they also create the Merlins. All of this is at Hawthorne, by the way. Then they've got, boosters, second stages. They share the same sort of line of production. There's a separate line of production also at Hawthorne for second stages because they build so many of them that they have like two different lines on two different buildings. And then once second stages or boosters are complete, they get their engines and everything, their engines on their own before they even get installed on a booster or a second stage, either Merlin vacuum or Merlin sea level. They all get tested at McGregor after they are, produced at Hawthorne. They go to McGregor, they go back to Hawthorne, they get installed on a second stage or on a booster, and then either the second stage or the booster heads out to McGregor. Now, you can see a lot of these testing, by the way, at McGregor Live. Shout out to our McGregor Live stream. And so you can see singular Merlin engines, Merlin vacuum engines. They are tested without the nozzle extension, which, by the way, today will be full because it's a Starlink. Haha, no stubby nozzle. And then, the second stages also get tested there. They get cryoed. They get also static fired. The boosters as well. We, in fact, have had 2 cryo tests of the one that is right now at McGregor. I think there's one ongoing right now at that booster, which we think it's maybe B1096. Thank you, Carson. But yeah, that booster, if it isn't already underway, maybe it's already done with it, but it was frosty and venting before. So maybe you can scrub back and look at that. You can see also a bunch of Merlins, Falcon 9 Stage 2 and everything. Okay, so they get tested at McGregor. Then they are sent to the launch site, either Vandenberg or Florida, right? That's the 2 places where they launch from. And then the boosters, once they launch once, right, the first launch, they don't come back. They just stay on their launch sites and they never come back unless there's like a major change to them, right? Very rarely. I think we've only seen that once, in fact, in all of the life history of Falcon 9, and especially, Falcon 9 Block 5. The very early ones, they did come to McGregor. Anyways, they go to the launch sites, they launch multiple times, they get reused. This one, for example, it is flying for a 21st time. Sometimes they do get some pre-launch testing and everything. Most of the time they don't because they're flight proven. They've already flown before, so they already have the data from that. And well, they get to this marvelous location called a launch pad that they launch from. I don't know, like if I get any more details into this, I'm already 3 minutes into this answer, so I'm just going to stop here.
Well, actually, to elaborate a little bit farther, there's also
Sure.
a few boosters that have gone back and forth between launch sites between Florida
Exactly.
and Vandenberg, as to starting in Florida and going to Vandenberg, or starting in Vandenberg and coming to Florida. There also have been, I think, 1 or 2 boosters that have gone back and forth more than once. So Falcon 9 either way is well traveled.
Yep, both in space and through road.
You beat me to it. I was going to say by land and by space. Yes.
And by sea.
And by sea. Dang it, Alex!
Because not only they get to land on drone ships and then they get towed back to port, but also at Vandenberg, they are transported to the launch site by barge. Because at least if they land on a drone ship, if they land on the drone ship, they are towed back to Long Beach. That's where they unload the boosters and the fairing halves, and then those go on a separate barge, and the barge gets sent to Vandenberg, which they have their own dock and everything there from the shuttle era and the Titans and everything.
I mean, you could. This is completely just. I'm just. Beating a dead horse here, but you could also add air to that because Falcon 9 does have to pass through the atmosphere to get back to its LZ, whether it be LZ1, LZ2, or Vandenberg or drone ship, and that's why it has grid fins to help steer itself through the air in the atmosphere. So land, air, sea, and space. Oh no!
And
oh no!
You know what? Sometimes they have also flown fairing halves on planes to get them faster to Florida, especially to Florida, from all the way from Hawthorne. But back in the day, I remember there were usually some shipments of fairings like very quickly, or even MVAC engines. I remember there was like a couple of years ago they flew a couple of MVAC engines to Florida because it was like by truck it's like 6 days or something like that, whereas flying them it's like what 3-4 hours, whatever.
So 1 if
Anyways.
by land, 2 if by sea, 3 if by air, and 9 if by space. Got it.
Basically,
Exactly.
Sawyer. Yes, checks out.
Yeah, the 3 engine for the entry burn. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
also, yeah, as Chris Bergen pointed out, beating a live horse would be very bad. The horse is already dead. Let's see. Bideford, a name we see here quite often, gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you so very much for that. It's always great to see you here. Thank you, Bideford. Now, Max, I know you were pointing out in the back channel you were hearing some thunder, and in the distance I know you were seeing lightning, but that's not a concern for this particular launch tonight based off of where it is, correct?
Correct. At least not at the moment. I've been keeping my eye on the radar pretty often, just because the weather can change here so rapidly. I want to be sure that I can cover everything if I need to. But seeing a lot of lightning out to the east, out over the Atlantic, but that is far enough away that is posing absolutely no concern, and that is also nowhere near in the flight path. This Falcon 9 is heading on a southeast trajectory tonight. Also hearing some thunder from the north, but not seeing any lightning. So that is a system that is very, very, very far away, and the winds are currently moving from south to north, so that is not posing an issue right now. Even if there was any storms in the flight corridor for Falcon 9 tonight, at least somewhere in the middle, Falcon 9 is flying above that, so that's not exactly a primary concern. It would only be a concern if that was hovering over any of the recovery vessels and creating seas that are just unfit for booster recovery or fairing recovery. So the last thing you want to do is land a first stage on a drone ship and have it tumble over, because we've never seen that happen before. But yeah, so weather currently right now is go. Obviously, SpaceX is confident that it will stay that way because they are currently in, or well into at this point, prop load of Falcon 9.
Bingo, right in the center.
Oh dear.
Wrong rocket, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know-
It's just every time I think of a rocket tipping over, I was on the stream that night with Jack, and that's all I can think of.
We're talking about numbers. I may add that ever since that failure, it's been 114 landings. Just saying.
Casual. Just as you do.
Oh, thanks, Carson. See some of the stats for today. 70th launch of the year. That includes the 3 starships, by the way, because unlike SpaceX, I do count Starship. So this will be like the 67th Falcon 9, I guess. But yeah, bunch of things there. Sometimes the numbers just get too big that it's like you gotta celebrate the big ones, like today, 500th Falcon launch.
There you go. Yes. So, of course, the big one being the 500th launch of a Falcon family rocket. But it's always fun to see the other things there, and the fact that we've got just read the instructions with, knock on wood, a pretty darn good record up to this point. It was only at -1 in terms of successes, right?
Yeah. And I mean, if somebody in chat is like, "Oh, but I want the actual 500th. It's gotta be with the Falcon 9." Well, just wait a month. Like, really, this is the 480.
Yeah.
And also, if you're like, "Oh, I only count orbital launches," well, this is the 483rd orbital flight of Falcon 9, which means you gotta wait only 17 more launches. That's maybe next month, like early July, probably. At this rate, they did 16 Falcon 9 launches in May. So just, just wait for more weeks.
I mean, we're talking non-orbital in terms of Amos as well as in-flight abort, or
Well, like if you only count launches and orbital launches, that will be this will be the 483rd orbital launch, yeah, whatever, of Falcon 9. And so you gotta add 17 more, which then it's like, that's early July, probably. They already have scheduled like 7 launches for the first 13 days of June. It's bonkers.
monkeys indeed. That's a lot of numbers there, but 2 numbers, well, I guess it's 1 number twice that I can give you, is 2020 as we approach the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent. Max, can you explain this best vent to us?
Absolutely. As we can see, Falcon 9 is getting very frosty and very venty as it is filled with more and more propellant. But at the moment, SpaceX is currently purging and thermally conditioning the lines in the transporter erector with a bit of liquid oxygen in order to cool down those any plumbing inside to at or near liquid oxygen temperatures, or at least super chilled liquid oxygen temperatures, because the last thing you want to do is flow any cryogenic propellant or fluid through any plumbing that is either at room temperature or just at a temperature that is nowhere near what the propellant going through it is at, because you risk flash gassing or any potential damage to the actual plumbing itself with cracking or shattering, and that is just not ideal for any of your componentry over on a launch pad or on a rocket for that matter. So that is what we are seeing. The big vent that you are seeing flowing from the transporter erector right now is just the excess LOX being vented out as it is flowed through to cool down those lines. Assuming all is on track, we should be seeing that wrap up at around T-minus 16 and a half minutes or so. And then when that stops, that is an indicator that SpaceX has begun stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. So things are progressing pretty rapidly here tonight.
And one thing that we talk about sometimes is you can tell a lot about the weather just from that 20-minute, 20-second vent. And Max, it seems like it's a little bit on the humid side there, huh?
Falcon 9 is indeed wearing a cape tonight. That was not intended, I promise. That was not pun intended. That is just
come
a
on,
cape.
you know it was intended.
No, genuinely, it was not. It's a cape of vapor that you see flowing from both Falcon and the TE. And as you can see from the direction that the vapor is traveling, the wind is indeed traveling from a south to north direction right now. So Falcon 9 is getting quite venti and just quite, I would say activity is ramping up over at the pad pretty rapidly.
It does as we get closer to the launch of Starlink 12-19 from Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. For those just joining, this is the 500th launch of a Falcon family vehicle. So that's Falcon 1, Falcon 9, and Falcon Heavy. And we have booster 1077 that will be the one carrying that crown, or I guess in this case, the cape of marking that special occasion. Alex, for those who might be wanting to go out and see it along the parts of Florida here, what is the trajectory for tonight's launch?
Yeah, so this launch is heading southeast from the Cape, and so if you are anywhere south of Cape Canaveral, you should look out roughly east, northeast. Like if you are too close, probably northeast, right? If you are a little bit more to the south, probably to the east might be better because it sort of gets you already in the way towards the east. And if you are in the Bahamas, I mean, look north because it's getting at you essentially. It's gonna fly sort of northeast of the Bahamas. There you go. That's the sort of the hazard zones for today between aerial and marine hazard zones and everything. And so you can see it's sort of going southeast. So if you are too close, probably northeast, right? But if you are far away, then probably just east. That will be good to for you. If you are north of the site, might be a little bit harder, but still, I will look south, essentially southeast. That will be a great sort of direction to look at and try to see it. Maybe if it's clear for you, you don't lose anything by trying.
Exactly. You do lose out by not trying.
Exactly.
Jeez, I'm still not bitter about that, except I'm bitter. Anyway, as we continue on here, you can see the fueling underway for this mission. Here's a good question. Flippers is asking, Max, can you hear the plumes from the venting?
Sometimes we can. That is heavily dependent on the wind direction. So, when the wind has been blowing from the east to west here, as we are mostly west from Slick 40 here at the KSC press site, we have heard venting and other activity from the Cape, whether it be hisses and pops and groans. We have heard that before from here, but if we are at like you guys were last week, Sawyer, for the GPS mission at some very close location on the Cape side, it is a lot easier to hear any venting or any activity over at the pad. The same goes actually for Slick LC39A as well. Haven't heard anything from Slick 41, at least from anywhere Cape side or here at the KSC, probably because there's a lot more shrubbery in the way in between the pad and where we are, depending on our perspective. From Slick 40, we have heard it, but it is incredibly rare, as there is about 4.5 miles of distance in between us and the pad.
Yeah, add on to that, you can hear it sometimes from Space Force. Like you mentioned, the wind has to be blowing in just the right direction. The air kind of has to be just right. I have heard it before. This past one, the wind was blowing directly towards us, so we did hear some of it. Not as pronounced as my remote video that I had set up, where it was about 500 meters from the pad, and that you can very clearly hear the venting. But yes, on occasion, you can hear it. Now, in terms of this particular booster, I think we kind of mentioned it a bit briefly earlier, but Alex, can you bring us through the history of booster 1077?
Well, it has quite a storied history, I guess. There you can see some of the customer missions that he had, like Crew 5, GPS 3, Space Vehicle 6 there. Then you've got Inmarsat 6, Flight 2, CRS 28, Galaxy 37, NG20, and then Optus-X. The SpaceX website says TD7, but I'm going to still use Optus-X. Then the Starlink missions, all those 13 Starlink missions are 5, 10, 613, 625, 633, 643, 651, 663, 10-4, 8, 11, 671, 1218, 1225, and 1223. So, yeah, quite a lot of Starlinks. If you're curious, it's already launched 343 satellites, which will become 366 after this mission.
Wow, I appreciate you counting the exact number of satellites launched from this booster. That is spectacular.
And that includes CubeSats carried on CRS-28. Just saying. I went to those links to be able to accurately count how many satellites this thing launched.
Alex, with the spreadsheets and with the accurate numbers, we appreciate the accuracy and the correctness here at NSF. So thank you, Alex, for that. And as mentioned, it will be just read the instructions. That will be the drone ship down range, and Bob will be the recovery vessel for those fairing halves. As we now approach 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 minutes and 34 seconds to go until tonight's launch attempt, which, as you can see there, they are fueling, so they are committed to that T0 for tonight's launch. And this one, again, it says 23 Starlink satellites, but this is a mix of different satellites, Alex, right?
Yep, 10 Starlink V2 minis, the ones that, connect to a user terminal, if you will, and then 13 of the direct to cell satellites, the ones that connect to a cell phone, if you have the correct plan, of course.
Yeah. And those are a little bit bigger than the regular ones. I know we were talking
Mhm.
earlier because we've seen, what was it, 29 Starlink satellites with this now?
The of
For the
the
most
of
for
the
Falcon for V2
yeah,
minis?
yeah, and those are the regular V2 minis, yeah. But with the direct to cell, they're a little bit thicker, and also, it's the extra mass from the deployable antenna as well that sort of limits the amount of Starlink direct to cell satellites that they can carry. Maybe they could probably add another one if they crunch a little bit the performance, right? But I believe they're probably already you know. Oh, there we go. I was talking a little bit slow just so we could bring this up. So this is a render actually from the T-Mobile ad. I think it was during the Super Bowl. I think it was. And they show a render of a direct-to-cell satellite. And so you can see there the deployable antenna. So it adds a little bit more mass, but it also adds more sort of area for the antenna to be able to listen to the cell phones on the ground.
Yes, adds the mass, adds an antenna. But wouldn't it be great if you could add some of the awesome NSF photographers' work to your wall?
Hmm.
Guess what? You can with shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and in particular, all of the shots from Starship Flight 9 that just recently happened, of course, last week. We got some amazing photography from out in the field from D and Max. We've got some of their prints in the shop there as well. And you can get them as metal prints, you can get them as more like posters. But the most important thing with all of these is that when you get one of these prints, you are supporting the photographer that took that shot. So a portion of what you get from or what you purchase from that sale will go towards the photographer that took it. And Max, while we have you, I mean, that green, I love it on that particular shot with that one engine going green.
Yeah, that was a very unhappy Raptor on one of the Raptors on the outer ring of 20 on booster 14-2. And that was the only frame that got it. The only thing that would make this frame any better, and which is what is, I guess, perfect in my mind, is if the plume was a bit more to the right and not obscuring the direct exhaust flow onto the launch mount, which was the goal that was in mind here. But I guess I will have to try again, even though this one came out, I would say, decently well, but not exactly how I want. So it's still burning in my mind, and I will hopefully try to go for it again on Flight 10.
Decently well, it's spectacular.
We are our own harshest critics, Sawyer.
I can attest to that very well, yes. So, but genuinely, that is a great shot. There's some other amazing ones up there from the team out at Starbase. You really should go check them out. I'm sure you'll find one that you like, and that's shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We are coming up now, under 9 minutes to go for the launch of the 500th Falcon family vehicle now here. So we are getting that much closer. And Max, I know you're going to have to start setting up soon, but before you do, can you kind of give us a rundown of what we can expect here in these last 8.5 minutes?
Absolutely. So at around T-minus 7 minutes is when SpaceX will command Falcon 9 engine chill to begin on the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. As in similar fashion to the big vent that we see with the transporter erector at T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds, they are thermally conditioning all of the plumbing and the pumps and every bit of I guess, material that will come in contact with the super chilled RP1 and liquid oxygen at liftoff, because the last thing you want to do again is flow any cryogenic fluid through any plumbing or hardware that is not at or near the same temperature, because a lot can go wrong in terms of flash gassing and just cracking, or worst case scenarios, explosions. And that's the last thing you want to have happen, especially with your first stage booster. They begin the engine chill for the MVAC in flight, and we should hear that call out from SpaceX, the SpaceX flight director or launch director in this case. So that should be coming up at around T-minus 1 minute is when all the vents close in on Falcon 9's first stage and second stage, as they begin to to pressurize the tanks, and that is also when Falcon 9 goes into internal power, or as we hear it, Falcon 9 is in startup. So at that point, everything in the countdown is autonomous. If Falcon 9 picks up any errors, either in the ground or any of its vehicle systems, it will turn on. I guess it will hold, and we should hear a hold from whoever is on console that night. But hopefully tonight we will not hear that. I guess over comms. But as we are seeing the countdown progress, it looks like things are going well. And because of that, I am going to bid everyone here adieu, at least for now, to get cameras and stuff ready for the stream and for the liftoff. So fingers crossed. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see y'all on the other side.
Good luck to you as well, Max. Excited to see the views tonight. Thank you, as always, for rolling out. So yes, at this point, engine chill is underway on those 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the rocket. The engine chill for the Merlin vacuum will happen once we're in flight. You'll typically hear that call out sometimes of MVAC chill. So we are getting that much closer. As we prepare for this one, here's a good question from James, by the way. They're wondering, as we see all these Starlink and satellite launches, when's the next human spaceflight for Falcon 9, Alex? If only it were coming up, in less than a week.
Yeah, that's going to be the Axiom 4 mission, currently scheduled for June 9th, I believe, 8:46 a.m. Eastern. So it will be 12:46 UTC, essentially. But, if I got it wrong, you can just check it out on the next space flight and say, Alex, you got it wrong, right? Because I just did that off the top of my head, because we're talking about it right before the launch. And so I sort of had that time and date sort of recent in my brain. But yeah, there you go. That's the mission for Axiom 4 for people going to the ISS on a brand new Crew Dragon capsule. Isn't that amazing? That you don't see that every day. That you see people going up in space, but also on a new Crew Dragon. That's gonna be nice. We're gonna figure out what kind of name they put to it and everything. We'll definitely cover here, by the way. Just saying. It's already out there on our channel. You can check out that live stream.
Yep, you can already set a reminder for it. But that's amazing that it's a second time only flown booster, a first time flown Dragon capsule for people to the ISS, including one of the newly inducted members into the Astronaut Hall of Fame, Peggy Whitson. So,
which is also being reused, I guess. Because she flew Axiom 2. So she's flying for a second time on Crew Dragon, although it's a different Crew Dragon. But you can say that, even the astronauts are being reused.
Did you just call the former head of the astronaut office who spent 2 long duration missions on board? Did you just call her reused?
I'm just joking. She's also like the non-Soviet / Russian astronaut in the world that has the most time in space. So just saying. She's a pro, but I was sort of joking that
I know you're joking. I know you would retract that statement, just like SpaceX is about to retract the strong back against Falcon 9, which it's hard to see from that view. You can see it better there on the SpaceX view. That is the metallic structure with the yellow clamps up at the top. That will lean back a whopping 1.8 degrees away from the vehicle ahead of launch. You can see the little venting going on there. That, though, still continuing to finish wrapping up with propellant loads, to wrap up with all of the communications, the thermal conditioning. All of that goes through that one particular strong back there, and it will throw all the way back closer to launch. And it is worth noting there, if you see the SpaceX clock, it will probably be behind ours because of latency. So that clock in the top left, in the blue, where it says Starlink 12-19, is the accurate one. And again, that is because this is the Starlink 12-19 mission, carrying 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites, a mix of regular and direct-to-cell, on booster 1077-21. The booster will hopefully land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions downrange. As we get here into the final 3 minutes, really quickly, let me thank Mark Lamb for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Very much appreciated. And a $10 super chat as well. Very much appreciate that. Now, Alex, we are coming up on a couple of events here for fueling up the vehicle wrapping up, right?
Yeah, we actually should be... There we go. I was actually going to talk about that. So they have wrapped up liquid oxygen load on the first stage. RP1 load was also wrapped up on the first stage like 4 minutes ago. So first stage, fully fueled, Second stage still has a few more seconds to go to load that liquid oxygen. So the next call out should be that, stage 2 LOX load complete and everything. Then we'll see a lot of venting from the Stromback, from the transport director. They're going to be purging all of the lines, doing all of those, as they call them, pushbacks and gas closeouts and everything. And so trying to depressurize some of the systems there that are used for fueling the Falcon 9. Then at T-minus 1 minute, we're going to have startup. That is when Falcon 9 takes over control of the countdown instead of, being the ground computers. And then hopefully a few seconds later, we'll hear the go for launch from the launch director. And then T-minus 3 seconds will get... There we go. I was sort of pausing there. Then at T-minus 3 seconds, we'll get Merlin engine ignition and liftoff at T0, hopefully in 1 minute, 36 seconds from now.
Here we go. And with that, the vehicle, by the way, is completely fueled. So it is full of all of its propellants and oxidizers. And they should be completing the gas closeouts momentarily, as you were discussing. We could see there by that big vent on the screen. So far, everything proceeding. We are now 1 minute and 15 seconds away from liftoff. As pointed out, next we should be hearing the call Falcon 9 entering startup when the onboard computers take control and the tanks pressurize to those flight levels. As we mentioned, that slight delay, you will hear that call from SpaceX, hopefully, at about T-minus 50 seconds. So we will make sure that we hear that.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There we go. So
Nice.
Falcon 9 has control of the count. Next up, we should hear the go for launch, hopefully, from the launch director in just a couple of seconds from now.
Launch director, go for launch.
There we go. 30 seconds now until liftoff. Everything proceeding as planned. They are go for launch. A reminder, we will be quiet and let you listen to the launch after it lifts off, as the sound does take a couple seconds, though, for it to reach our microphones at the press site a couple of miles away. We are now less than 10 seconds to go until launch. So keep an eye on the base of the vehicle where we'll see those Rainbirds start up. We should hopefully see an ignition as well. We have ignition and liftoff of Starlink 12-19, and the 500th Falcon family launch is underway. Gotta love that crackle. Minute and a half into flight, passing through max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure on Falcon 9. And so far, everything looking good. I appreciate now with the new updated graphics, we can see the actual 9 engines lit up there on the bottom right too. All looking good.
Ooh, I've not been with you with the new overlays. Because, when entry burn happens, you'll see.
I'm well aware. I've watched. Still worth
but
pointing out to
here
those who don't see the 9 engines on Falcon 9. Wonder how it
Yeah.
got the name there.
Yep. Should be about 30 seconds to main engine cutoff when those 9 Merlin engines will shut down. The 2 stages will separate, and we're gonna have MVAC ignition on the second stage.
Yep. And you can see that bluish color coming out as it gets into the thinner parts of the atmosphere, the plume expansion continuing, And a reminder, it's a slight delay from our clock to their feed. Ours is more
You can
accurate.
see
Theirs is on a slight delay.
the G limiting there at 3.8, 3.9 Gs, and
And
shutdown.
there is Miko, main engine cutoff. And stage separation.
Of one single engine.
I do love that just giant blob on the right there. And we have ignition of the
There we go.
Merlin vacuum engine propelling those satellites on their way into orbit. Meanwhile, the grid fins on the left side of the screen there unfurling, interacting with that plume from stage 2. You gotta love it. And so far, that looks good. That will now proceed on its way back down. Well, it will continue on a slight upward trajectory until it reaches the highest point in its orbit. Meanwhile, the fairing halves should separate away on the right side of your screen. And Alex, that's a great view showing the difference between the two Starlink satellites.
Yeah, you can see the 10 V2 minis at the bottom, the 13 direct-to-cell satellites at the top, and those two fairing halves. They will be parachuting down to the Atlantic Ocean. They're going to be recovered by recovery vessel Bob, if I'm not mistaken, for this
are
one.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep, it is bob down range to recover those. They do have thrusters and parachutes on board to help steer them so that it's easier to be scooped up out of the water, picked up, and then brought back.
Yep.
I'll throw in my Sawyer Flex the other day coming back from the last launch. I did get stuck in traffic behind two fairing halves.
Yeah. One of the things, so we were seeing the G meter before for the first stage. You might have noticed that, when it goes through max Q, it's already throttle up, because when it goes through max Q, it has already sort of slowed down before, and it doesn't go through that max Q with a high Q, so to speak. I don't know. And then when it goes close to Miko, when it goes close to that end of the first stage burn, it sort of limits the G forces to like 3.8, 3.9 Gs. And then, of course, we will not see this today, but when the MVAC engine does a relight and everything, they also show the G meter. It's quite funny how, it tries to hold the Gs, but because it's like a big engine in a small second stage. And so, yeah, it packs a punch.
It sure does. And stage 1 has now passed apogee, the highest point in its orbit. The altitude will now decrease, and the speed will continue to increase, which is totally fine. And as we have the entry burn coming up, that will be the first burn to help slow it down when 3 of those Merlin 1D engines will ignite on stage 1 for about 20 seconds or so. And so far, everything looking good. I love chat pointing out the dot still in the bottom right for stage 1 there.
Yeah. And since we're coming up on entry burn, now you'll see, because they have this sort of, new dynamic overlays, if you will. So the altitude will turn back to a graphic of the engines. And so we'll see, as we always say, it's a 1-3-1 burn, which means the center engine will ignite first, then 2 of the outer engines, engine 1 and 5. And then those 3 will be running for 25 seconds more or less. And then those outer 2 will shut down. The center one will run for a couple more seconds and then finally shut down the entry burn.
Speaking of, here comes entry burn.
There we go.
There's one. You could tell once the other ones ignite when you get that long line. There it is. Also now with the graphic in the bottom makes it too easy.
And as always, telemetry comes first because video needs a bit of processing. So you'll see first the shutdown on the telemetry and then on the video.
As pointed out, it's about 20 to 25 seconds total for the entry burn here.
There we go.
And that's shutdown. And you will see the speed pick up for a little bit. That is totally normal. And you'll notice very quickly that once that stops, it will bleed off quite fast as it now gets into that thick part of the atmosphere. You can see the interaction there with the grid fin on the left side of the screen there. Beautiful view of that tonight.
EJ supersonic with propulsion.
Oh my gosh. He's already got a song stuck in my head. So thank you, EJ, for both of those. 17 kilometers now away from the drone ship. And 2,500 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, stage 2 on the right side of your screen looking nominal so far, 148 kilometers up, 18,500 kilometers an hour in speed. So as much as we love watching Stage 1 land, the actual getting payloads into orbit is probably the more important part.
Ask Starlink 93.
Yeah, let's not. No ice. Anyway, 5 kilometers now, coming under 1,000 kilometers an hour. So next up will be that landing burn, which is a single engine. You can see the light of the drone ship, by the way, on the left side of the screen there already under one of the grid fins. And there is that ignition.
Watch out for the deluge on Just Read the Instructions.
And the grid fins helping to steer the vehicle on its final trajectory in the thicker parts of the atmosphere. You can see the very wet deck. Landing like deploy. Come on, Starlink. There we go. And touchdown. Dash 22. Now added to this booster, a successful landing after a successful 500th flight of a Falcon vehicle. Well, I should say 500th flight, not all of them were successful, but this one was.
Exactly.
Put all the asterisks on the end there.
Is that the moon?
That's no moon. That's oh wait. A little hard to tell there, but you can see we should have Seco 1 momentarily, and there it is. Second engine cutoff 1, and we have the empty launch pad. And we have Max back with us from the field. Max, how was it tonight?
Indeed. We were talking about sounds we could hear sometimes from Slick 40. I have to say, that was among the most concussive I've heard from Slick 40 to this point. I mean, the air is just exceptionally still, albeit incredibly humid, which are perfect conditions for carrying acoustic energy from rocket engines like we heard tonight. Or punchy, as Alex is saying in the back channel that I sometimes say. But I think that the more appropriate word tonight is concussive, because you really felt that right away. And it was incredibly clear, and I hope that came through on the microphone for everyone to hear, because that was incredible. And also, the VAB squeal behind us was among the most prevalent I've yet heard. So, in terms of a launch experience, this was certainly a memorable one. And Falcon 9 is now successfully on its way, and we have 1077 successfully landed on its drone ship. So it's been a good night so far all around.
Yes, we have replays coming up, so stand by for those. But yeah, when the air is super thick like that, you feel the launch more than just hear it. So I mean, we had a little bit of humidity the other day, but the humidity tonight was absolutely spectacular. I can only imagine the sound. And speaking of those replays, here we go. Coming through fast. Absolutely beautiful views again tonight. As we continue to watch these, I do want to point out, I saw a couple people saying this of like a very visible divert, and had a couple people worried there. But Alex, Falcon 9 intentionally does a late turn towards the drone ship just in case, right?
Yeah, during that landing burn, it sort of steers itself to the drone ship. When it's doing the reentry burn, like right after we see some of the today it was obviously during the night, so it was not as visible. But during daylight, you can see that the grid fins are really working their way, and you may see if you tilt your head a little bit that the booster is flying way too horizontal. Right? It's using its own lift, its own body to fly through the atmosphere and steer itself close, but not to the drone ship. And then that landing burn brings it all the way to the drone ship.
Exactly. So it's not a bad thing. It would be worse if it then had an issue and crashed into the drone ship. We have actually seen it not land and keep that diverted trajectory before with CRS-16, was it?
Yeah, and also the Falcon Heavy Center Core from Falcon Heavy Demo.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it
Went
just
straight
plunged.
into the water. Yep.
Yep, right next to the drone ship. There was one time though where the drone ship got a hole on it because of a booster that it started the landing burn, but it didn't complete the landing burn, and that was from SES-9. That was actually the first attempt to a drone ship landing from a high energy mission. But yeah.
Yeah, they tried
It came back with a
also.
hole.
Thomas Hayden in chat, rip Falcon Heavy Center Core.
Yeah.
Let me thank a couple of people as we continue to watch these replays. This is the auto track view Mark Lamb had a question earlier. I'll make sure to save that because we have one more with audio here. And Joe Pistrio, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Very much appreciate that. Man, those clouds ate it up, Max, as it got later on, huh?
Yeah, they sure did. And that was the cloud layer that I was mentioning before about how it's not super low, but it's also not super high up either. But certainly enough to get in the way past a certain point in flight. I was hoping for a bit of a shock cone considering where the cloud layer is, but I did not see any on the monitor. But the launch experience itself, at least with the noise tonight, more than made up for it.
Well, speaking of the noise, let's listen into this one again. See if you can hear that VAB squeal. See if you can hear that concussive nature, as Max described it, on this particular flight. Ooh-wee. And man, the vehicle is hard to track as is on a normal night or a normal day, but to have that haze at the end there, Max, great job continuing to track that.
Yeah, thanks, Sawyer. And I think the one part of the audio that I hope everyone picked up on, at least I heard it with my own ears here, and hopefully came through on the audio, is right away when the sound first arrived. When I said it was concussive, like it arrived with a lot more force than what we normally get from Slick 40, and hopefully that came through on the audio. I will upload the local recording up later tonight, and hopefully that footage can be seen elsewhere in other videos. Same with the audio, but it was very impressive tonight for sure.
Like as part of our socials, we're on all of your favorites, X, Facebook, Instagram, and even some of your least favorites, but we're on those. Yeah. And really quickly here, Mark Lamb with the question that I wanted to point out, saying, how many more Dragon capsules do we anticipate SpaceX to build? Didn't realize they were making new ones still. Thanks as always, and +1 pun token to Sawyer. I will take that pun token, thank you. But Alex, this I believe is the last one, right?
Yeah, this is the last one. There are no any like crew or cargo dragons in construction anymore, and actually they just sort of close the doors, if you will, to the production of any new dragons. They needed this 5th crew dragon because they have so many crew dragon missions that in order to keep up with all of them, they sort of needed this 5th crew dragon. But yeah, 3 cargo dragons, 5 crew dragons, and that's all they need.
And we should also mention that this brand new Dragon is going to be debuting on the X4 mission early next week, which is very exciting because we haven't had that in a while, which means we are going to get a brand new capsule with a brand new name, and hopefully we will hear what the crew will be calling it just after stage separation. So we'll have to wait and see.
And if you can't wait to see, you can at least set a reminder for when it does come, because we already have the stream live for that here on the NSF YouTube channel. So you can go and set a reminder for that one. And there is another launch before that, by the way, and that is a satellite for Sirius XM satellite radio. SXM10 is also there. And thank you, Carson, for already setting those reminders. So we remember, and you can do the same, that you get notified when we get those Falcon 9 launches in the coming days here. So definitely check those out. We also have our European interview series continuing this week as well. We have that on Wednesday, Europe's Future in Space. So make sure you check that out as well and set a reminder for that NSF Live where you can come and ask your questions as well. And you've got Atmos Space Cargo there for that one. I love the thumb, so I'm very intrigued to watch it and learn all about it.
Yeah, we've had launch companies, we've had satellite companies. Now we're going to have a company that actually returns things from space. It's going to be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to be on that, interviewing the CEO, I think it is. Forgot. Should look it up before the interview. But yeah, we're going to be interviewing Atmos for that one.
My problem is anyone who's a Doctor Who fan and remembers the David Tennant run, Atmos has a very different meaning. So definitely different from that. Anyway.
Don't mention Doctor Who. Not the week
you
for
watched?
that.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
We'll talk offline. Anyway, Alex, thank you for joining me for the launch tonight.
It's been a pleasure. And, more up next.
That is for sure. Max, thank you for rolling out in the field tonight. We appreciate it as always.
And it is always a pleasure, Sawyer and Alex. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming in, tuning in, and hanging out. And there is a lot more to come in the next week or so, both with X4 and then Kuiper 2 coming up just after that with Atlas 5. So lots happening here on the Space Coast, and we are going to be covering all of it.
Speaking of coming up, the Transporter Erector on your screen there, you can see it coming up already at Pad 40. Carson Phillips, the one pointing that out, also pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and operating tonight's stream. Thank you, Carson. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for tonight's launch, the 500th Falcon family launch. We will see you for number 501. Have a great one, everybody.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.